Welcome to the broadcast, everybody. I'm just popping in for a quickie, so I don't expect to keep you too long. Pull up a throne, put on the kettle, and let's sip the royal tea together, shall we, my dears? I was absolutely thrilled to see His Majesty make a surprise appearance at the Royal Opera House in Covent Garden, a gala performance celebrating Sir Antonio Pappano's 22-year tenureship as music director it was. And the King became patron of the Royal Opera House in 2009 when he was the Prince of Wales. So he was especially in his element here. And the cast and crew were only informed of the royal presence with 20 minutes to spare before curtain up. And the atmosphere, I'm told, became electric. The King was in attendance. And after the performance, the King joined the orchestra on stage to bid farewell to Pappano. And this was to rapturous applause. And Sir Antonio said of the King that he was just so generous in his praise, and genuinely so, and that means everything. He loves music. Well, we know that he does adore music and arts and culture and heritage of that kind, and it's something that I think might be sorely missing in future generations. I'm not saying the Waleses don't have an interest, but we all know that it is not the intimate fervour and passion and fondness and affection that His Majesty has for the classical arts, if you will. I actually hope that one of the Wales Children 3 might develop a passion in that sort of arena, just to keep things chugging along, you know, to keep that very personal, vested interest in that area going along, because it's very much appreciated by those in the industry, as you will have seen if you looked at the footage of these present at Opera Night. And actually, as I watched it, something else popped up. A Royal Opera Night from 1953. You know, sometimes I will share old videos I've been watching, and again this was one from British Pathé, that fabulous channel of archival footage. And this particular one, I'll put the link to it in the description box, was so full of that compelling glamour of old school royalty and old school Britain. Oh, how fabulous. True star quality the royals had as well. So exciting when certain dukes and duchesses think that they are the newest thing under the sun and the best thing since sliced bread. Well, I'm not even sure if sliced bread was around in 1953. I'm sure it was, but you know, going back decades, royalty, true stars, scintillating, captivating to watch. It really is. It just enthralls me. So for those fruits of you, I will put that in the description box, and maybe a selection of other bits and bobs that come up from that fabulous channel. Another one I saw was something called The Royal Sale of Work from 1955, and this was so wonderful to watch. It was something completely different from the glitz and the glamour and the fur stoles, although the Queen Mother was wearing a fur stole at this gathering at her castle, Abergele Castle, in Scotland this was. And there's footage of them selling articles. They were raising funds for the vestry at Pathé. You know, when we talk about King Causey socks at Crathy Kirk, well, same old church, they were raising funds for the vestry all that time ago, and it was just so endearing, the Scottish people looking so lovely there. And there were glimpses of little Charles and little Anne, Prince Philip looking so very dashing and handsome and charismatic, and the late Queen just absolutely resplendent with beauty. That winning smile, that broad smile, so gorgeous. And you see it reflected in the smile of her daughter, don't you, the Princess Royal? And I saw it at the Not Forgotten Garden Party, a glorious afternoon at Buckingham Palace for the Not Forgottens, hosted by the Princess Royal. And this is an annual tradition since 1921, and the event brings together 2,000 former servicemen and women for a special afternoon in the garden. And the Not Forgotten is a tri-service charity providing entertainment, leisure and recreation for those who once served and who now have disabilities and illness, and serving personnel who are wounded, injured or sick. And wasn't she looking absolutely divine in this jacket? 'Twas in a shade of Queen Anne's lace, embroidered in metallic brown, and a very feathery hat, a sumptuous confection, finished with 2 golden brooches. Which do you prefer, down or to the side? Down or air stewardess? Cabin crew. River air. What do you think? It's just as well the Princess Royal managed a regal smile because there has been outrage brewing, and I can understand why, and displeasures have been made known, due to the machinations of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. And I'm sorry to sully the broadcast with mention of them, but they can't get away with these kinds of things because Anne is patron of Save the Children, and Save the Children have been putting Harry and Meghan's name in their mouth. And they thanked Prince Harry and Meghan for joining us in Nigeria to learn more about how we ensure children don't just survive but thrive. And that's all very well and good. And I'm not trying to discourage any work that might benefit Save the Children. But how does the reputation of Save the Children continue to be taken seriously if they are glad to host and harbour known traitors such as the Sussexes, who have blotted their copy with the royal family and with royal admirers? Your patron is Anne, Save the Children, your patron. And people have actually been withdrawing their donations. I looked through the comment section and it was chock full. There were over 500,000 views of this, by the way, in the 600,000s, which is very unusual for a Save the Children post. So they've been getting lots of publicity from the Harkles, but whether it's good or bad, well, you can tell me, because looking through the comments, people are most disgruntled, and I'm certainly not recommending or encouraging anybody to withdraw their donations at all. But I'm saying that it's happening. It's happening. A brand has a reputation to preserve, and Anne is serving at the helm of that organisation. She's been president of it since 1970. And then she succeeded the late Queen as patron in 2017. And the late Queen was patron from 1952 to 2017. Save the Children, you better save your skin, my dear, and read the comments, because the people have spoken loud and clear. And your tacit or implicit approval is not welcome, and that has been made quite apparent. Following a meeting between the Duke and Duchess of Sussex and Save the Children staff, with two of their charity's youth ambassadors present, this was facilitated and chaired by their global ambassador, Misson Harriman, and they were invited by Misson Harriman, their photographer. And I have nothing at all personal against this bloke. I don't know much about him, other than the fact that he scuttles about with their entourage and gets a lot of work through them. So he knows where his bread's buttered. But I have nothing against the boy, nothing against him. What I'm objecting to is Save the Children's deferential language and their deferential tone towards the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. They tell us it was an immense privilege to meet them. We're honoured that the Duke and Duchess took time out of their busy schedule. Well, you're the ones that are actually providing them with publicity, Save the Children. You're doing them a favour. You are building on their propaganda. So why are you thanking them? Why are you crawling and grovelling to them? In fact, the crawling sycophancy is nauseating. So while I wish Save the Children very well, especially because they have the Princess Royal as their patron, I would also strongly advise them to buckle up and remain a class act rather than a supporter and benefactor of a sideshow tawdry cabaret. Sorry, my dear, when I get exercised, my scarf slips all over the place, and I don't want to tie it so tight that it'll throttle me, so it'll just have to dangle there, my dear, in all its primary coloured boldness. Yes. Well, another story has emerged exemplifying that tawdriness, because one of the party that welcomed the Duke and Duchess of Sussex to Nigeria has been discovered to be a fugitive. Yes, a fugitive who has been federally indicted in the United States for allegedly orchestrating a $20 million money laundering and bank fraud scheme. And for legal reasons, I will say that this is according to the Daily Mail, not according to me. But according to the Daily Mail, Dr. Alan Onyema is chairman and CEO of Air Peace, which is the airline that was flown by the Sussexes from Abuja to Lagos. And he appeared as part of the welcoming committee, as a key member of those who were embracing the Sussexes into Nigeria. And this indictment accuses Onyema of allegedly using his status as a prominent business leader and airline executive to launder more than 20 million from Nigeria through US bank accounts. Now, I understand that the Sussexes were most likely quite unaware of this scandal and perhaps might not have associated with this character if they had known. I don't expect them to be aware of every single misdemeanour of every single person they meet. That isn't what this is about. But I bring the story to your attention to highlight that when you see headlines describing a lineup of dignitaries to greet them and welcome them, or three kings of Orient lining up with their gold, frankincense and myrrh, not everything is always quite what it seems, and it certainly doesn't seem that everything in this case was especially kosher, does it? Their team, that are fabled for being so very on it, can't be quite as discerning as they might have been, or as they should be. True royalty and traditional members of the royal family do not draw attention to themselves in such a vulgar manner, such a self-serving manner. And two that sum this up so very well and sing to the world in a quiet, understated, regal manner are Sophie and Edward, the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, who appeared at the ceremony of the keys at the palace of Holyrood House. The tradition of the ceremony of the keys takes place whenever the monarch or a representative makes an official visit to Edinburgh. And Major General Alistair Bruce was looking after them. And I've spoken before of what an invaluable asset he is to the royal family. He is a avuncular figure, if you will, a sort of gay Uncle Ali. He's an avuncular, knowledgeable figure to Lady Lou, and indeed little Jimmy Severn. He's actually godfather to one of them, and he also happens to be the governor of Edinburgh Castle. And he did a fine job, as he always does, of executing the procedures and stewarding the royal custom, with Sophie in a jacket and skirt by Susanna, diamond cloquet in forest green with Prada heels, and an emerald clutch by Sophie Hasberg. And then, of course, this morning it was the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland, and this is where Prince Edward deputised for the King as Lord High Commissioner. He welcomed the newly elected moderator, Reverend Dr. Shaw James Paterson, and he spoke of the support he had received from royal chaplains following the death of his mother. And he said that the death of his father, Prince Philip, the year before, made the late Queen's death far more emotional. And he said, "For my own part, I just want to pay personal tribute to the chaplains of the Chapels Royal, and especially those here in Scotland." He said that there have been moments recently where I have been lucky to have sensed God's care and love, and who could forget the scenes that followed the passing of my mother? The outpouring of emotions, the demonstration of respect, love and grief was overwhelming and a privilege to experience and behold. I think I can speak for my whole family when I say we will remain forever grateful for that support. And he went on to praise the various chaplains and how they had helped him behind the scenes. And he said something that I often say here on the broadcast, which is that it wasn't what they did and said, but it was how they did it and how they said it that was of great support and succour to him in his time of bereavement. And as I have said before on several occasions, because it was fairly obvious to me, and I'm sure many of you, I think in the wake of the late Queen's death, despite their immense grief, I think it was so powerful to see scenes of the like that we've never seen before. I think it galvanised them all, from William through to Anne, through to Edward and Sophie. Absolutely every single one of them saw that their unsung, largely unsung work was not in vain, and that people had a genuine affection for the royal family. Even those who didn't realise that they did found themselves in puddles of tears when the late Queen died. And many will, even for Charles, when his time comes around as well, because you grow up with them. And they saw very viscerally, from the large queues at the late Queen's coffin, of course, that went on for hours and hours and days in some cases, saw them coming in with genuine mourning as if they were grieving a member of their own family, and they saw the goodwill coming in their direction and to the new king's direction, which was thoroughly unexpected in such an intense manner. And I think that it galvanised every single one of them, and you see a spring in the step even for the likes of the Princess Royal that I didn't really sense before in the same sort of way. They know that what they do is of value. They've always known that, but now they know that other people know it and share in the enthusiasm. And even, I would say that it's even a positive of the age of social media. There are many negatives, as you know. I'm rather critical of the social media age, but it is getting them exposed and seen in a way that wasn't possible before. So there is a silver lining to that particular cloud, isn't there? Yes. But another Anne that's been in the headlines, and we've spoken about her before, is Annie Robinson. You are the weakest link. Goodbye. And she has confirmed the romance that I spoke to you about with Andrew Parker Bowles. Yes, she confirms, and it's been going on for about 20 months now. The ex-husband of Queen Camilla, of course, and she confirmed it to Saga magazine. She said, yes, full stop, mind your own business, in her typically brusque manner. This romance has been conducted in the Cotswolds, where they both reside, and the matchmaker apparently was Father Felix, her neighbour in the Cotswolds, who is a retired monk and who boarded with Anne's brother Peter back in the day. And a lunch happened to be being thrown for him, and Father Felix suggested that Andrew come along as well, and he knew that Anne would be there. He was suggested as a guest, and he got them together. And of course, it's, I suppose you would say, slightly unusual, especially for that generation. She is the daughter of a market trader. He is an aristocratic cavalry officer, and one of the inspirations for Jilly Cooper's hero, Rupert Campbell Black, in her Rutshire Chronicles. And Annie has grabbed him by the chronicles. And his chronicles are legendary, my dear. She said that she had been single for 17 years, and Andrew is 84 years old now, and for those of you that don't know, he used to court Anne. He used to court the Princess Royal before he married Camilla. Oh yes, it was all going on, my dear. But it just goes to show, doesn't it? They're both in their winter season now, and it goes to show that the winter season can be cosy and romantic and sexy and as fun as any other season. And let's round off with a little bit of Dickie Gloucester. Yes, Prince Richard, Duke of Gloucester, observed a parade to mark 100 years of the Royal Auxiliary Air Force on the forecourt of Buckingham Palace, where spectators gathered to watch the spectacle of squadrons and colour parties celebrating 100 years of volunteer reserve service in the RAF by taking part in this unique parade. The sovereign's colour of the Royal Auxiliary Air Force was marched before the Duke, who is Honorary Air Commodore-in-Chief. The Royal Auxiliary Air Force is the reserve element of the RAF, whose members contribute their spare time service to the defence of this country, and it can trace its roots all the way back to 1924, providing trained personnel to support the RAF wherever it is deployed. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, won't you, my dears? Stay fruity and always on royal duty, and I'll catch up with you next time. Take care and toodle pip.